Carl Jung noticed something strange after decades of studying human psychology. The people who were closest to the most important transformation of their lives rarely felt excited about the future. In fact, they usually felt the opposite: confused, disconnected, restless, as if something that once gave their life meaning had quietly stopped working. Most people assume these feelings mean something is wrong. Jung believed they often mean something very different. He observed that before a person enters a completely new chapter of life, the psyche almost always sends a series of signals. Not one, not two, but a pattern of signs that appears again and again across different lives, different ages, and different circumstances. The problem is that almost nobody recognizes them when they arrive. People mistake them for failure, for burnout, for depression, for a midlife crisis. And because they misunderstand what is happening, they often run back to the very life they were meant to outgrow. So here's the question: what if the confusion you're feeling right now is not a sign that you're lost? What if the emptiness, the restlessness, the strange sense that your old life no longer fits you are actually signs that something in you is trying to change? Because according to Jung, the best chapter of a person's life rarely begins when everything is working. It begins when the old life starts losing its grip. In this video, I'll show you the 4 signs Jung believed often appear when someone is standing at that threshold, and why the period that feels most uncertain is often the beginning of something far more meaningful than you realize. If you recognize yourself in these signs, what you're experiencing may not be a breakdown at all. It may be the beginning of the chapter you were always meant to live. Let's find out. 1. The life you built wasn't really yours. Most people believe that a life crisis begins when something goes wrong. A loss, a betrayal, a failure that cannot be hidden. Something that breaks the surface and gives the pain a name and a reason. But Jung observed something far more unsettling. He watched people arrive at his door not because their lives had fallen apart, but because their lives had gone exactly according to plan. And they were devastated by it. The career was built. The family was formed. The achievements were real. And yet beneath all of it, something felt borrowed, inherited, like wearing a coat that was tailored for someone else's body. You have worn it long enough that you forgot it was never cut for you. But the body remembers. The body always remembers. Jung called the mask we build the persona, the role we construct to be accepted, to be loved, to be safe inside the structures we were born into. And he wrote something that many people read and immediately feel in their chest without fully understanding why. He wrote, "The persona is that which in reality one is not, but which oneself, as well as others, think one is." Read that again slowly. The person you have been presenting to the world, the responsible one, the capable one, the one who has it together, may not be you at all. It may be the most sophisticated survival mechanism your psyche ever built. And here's what Jung understood that almost no one talks about. The persona is not built only from what your parents expected of you, though that is part of it. It is built from something older and deeper. He called it the collective unconscious, the inherited architecture of human experience, the archetypes that a culture writes onto a person before they are old enough to choose differently. You did not just inherit your mother's expectations. You inherited the archetype of the successful professional, the good partner, the person who does not complain, the person who pushes through. These are not personal instructions. They are cultural scripts that run so deep, Most people never question whether they wrote them. And the trouble with living inside an archetype you never consciously chose is this: you can succeed completely at being it and still feel like you are disappearing. Elena, a brilliant lawyer, a caring mother, a successful woman who did everything perfectly according to every available role model. And standing before that mirror at age 41, she felt less authentic than at any other time in her life. Not because she failed in the script, because she mastered it, because she gave the best performance of her life, and now she no longer finds herself behind it. This is not a crisis. This is what Jung called the beginning of individuation. The moment the soul decides it will no longer live inside a story written by someone else. The moment the real person, the one buried under decades of performance, begins to push toward the surface. It does not feel like awakening at first. It feels like something is wrong with you. Nothing is wrong with you. You have simply outgrown the coat. 2. When everything stops making sense. The stage in the alchemical process where the base material has to decompose completely before it can be transformed into something of genuine value. The alchemists understood something that our self-improvement culture has systematically forgotten. You cannot refine gold from ore without first breaking down the ore. The structure has to dissolve. The original form has to be surrendered, and that dissolution looks from every angle like pure loss. Jung wrote, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." He was not being poetic. He was describing a mechanism. The pain you are experiencing is not a signal that something is going wrong. It is the signal that something is going right, something your ego does not want. Something your ego will fight with everything it has. Here is the distinction that changes everything. The ego does not want transformation. The ego wants improvement. It wants to become a better version of itself while remaining fundamentally the same. It wants to add new capabilities, new relationships, new achievements, new perspectives to its existing structure, without ever questioning whether that structure needs to come down entirely. Every self-help book, every productivity system, every 3-step program promising rapid transformation, they all speak to the ego. They promise that you can get to the other side without going through the middle, that you can have the new chapter without allowing the old one to actually end. Jung would have looked at all of it and recognized it as what it is: the ego's desperate attempt to avoid the one thing that could actually transform it. Think about what happens in nature during winter. Everything above ground goes dormant. The landscape looks barren, lifeless. If you did not understand seasons, you would assume the earth was finished producing anything. But underneath that frozen surface, the soil is restructuring itself. Root systems are deepening in ways they never could during the busy growing season. The apparent death is the condition for the next period of growth. Elena spent 6 months trying to fix what she was feeling. Every solution worked briefly. None of them touched the actual thing. She described it later this way. She said it felt like she was rearranging furniture in a house that needed to be rebuilt from the foundation. She was right. And the moment she stopped trying to rearrange the furniture was the moment everything finally began. 3. The 4 signs you are already crossing over Jung did not only describe this threshold period in philosophical language. He documented specific psychological markers, things he observed consistently across hundreds of patients, that appeared in people who were approaching a major life transformation. These markers are almost always misread by the people experiencing them, by their families, sometimes even by therapists who do not understand what they are witnessing. They look like symptoms of something going wrong. They are actually signs of something going right. Here are the 4. The first is a hollowing out of things that used to carry meaning. You wake up, and the life you have built, the one that met all the criteria, feels like a theater set for a production that already closed. You go through the motions because you do not know what else to do. The emotional current that used to run through your routines, your goals, your relationships, has thinned to almost nothing. People around you do not notice because you are still performing. But inside you feel as though you are watching your own life from a slight distance through glass, and what you see no longer makes sense to you. Jung recognized this as the psyche withdrawing its energy from the structures the ego built. When something has completed its function in your psychological development, the life force begins pulling back from it. Think of the way sap retreats from branches in autumn. The branches do not break, they just go quiet, and the energy that used to flow through them begins pooling somewhere deeper, preparing to fuel something you cannot yet see or name. The second marker is an uprising from places you thought were settled. You start dreaming vividly, dreams that feel significant even when they resist explanation. Memories surface that you have not thought about in decades. Emotions arrive with no apparent cause. You cry without knowing why. You feel waves of anger that do not connect to anything happening in your present life. Old wounds you believed you had healed begin aching again, as though they had only been sleeping. This is the unconscious making its move. When the ego's grip on consciousness loosens, when the old identity starts losing its authority, everything that was compressed underneath that identity begins rising. Every feeling you set aside because you did not have time for it. Every part of yourself you rejected in order to fit into the life you were building. All of it starts coming up. And the pressure behind it is enormous because it has been held down for years, sometimes for decades. The third marker is an intense, almost physical need for solitude that no one in your life understands. You cancel plans. You need more time alone than you ever have. Social situations that used to feel natural begin to feel like they are taking something essential from you. You are not depressed exactly. You just cannot be around other people without sensing that something important is leaking out of you. Like every interaction requires you to perform a version of yourself that is becoming impossible to sustain. Jung understood this as the psyche conserving its resources. Transformation requires enormous internal energy, and the psyche begins redirecting that energy away from external engagement and toward the interior work that is underway. Your need for solitude in this period is as legitimate as the body's need for stillness during illness. Something inside you is being rebuilt. The rebuilding requires the energy you have been giving away to everything and everyone else. The fourth marker is the one that frightens people most, and it is the one most commonly misdiagnosed. It is not simply that your tastes change or your goals lose their pull, though those things happen too. It is something stranger and more specific than that. It is the arrival of feelings and impulses and desires that you have spent your whole life refusing to acknowledge. A restlessness that does not belong to your current life. A strange grief for a version of yourself you never allowed to exist. An inexplicable envy, not of what other people have, but of how freely some people seem to be living. Jung called what you are encountering here the shadow, the parts of the self that were rejected or suppressed, not because they were evil, but because they did not fit into the persona you were building. The creative impulse you set aside because it was not practical. The need for freedom you buried because responsibility demanded otherwise. The authentic emotional life you flattened because it made other people uncomfortable. He wrote this, and it is worth sitting with. He wrote, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." The darkness that is arriving is not your enemy. It is the part of you that has been waiting the longest. The unlived self, knocking from the inside. Not to destroy what you have built, to demand that you finally let it exist. If you are sitting with 2 or 3 of these markers right now, you are not broken. You are not falling apart. You are standing at the threshold. And what happens next depends entirely on one thing: whether you can resist the pull to retreat back to the familiar before the new thing has a chance to form. 4. The gap between 2 breaths. This is where most people lose the transformation that is trying to happen, not during the hollowing out or the rising of old pain, but in the silence that comes after, when the old structure is gone or going, and the new one has not yet arrived, when there is nothing left to hold on to and nothing visible to move toward. Jung described this as a kind of psychological freefall, and that is exactly what it feels like. The goals that once organized your days have dissolved. The identity you used to navigate the world has lost its coherence. The story you told about who you are and why your life matters has stopped making sense. And you are left in a void that the ego experiences as the most threatening thing it has ever encountered. Because the ego survives through structure, through knowing, through having a plan, a role, a reason. When all of that is stripped away, the ego goes into a primal panic. This is not a metaphor. Neuroscience tells us that the human brain is hardwired for loss aversion. The fear of losing what we have is neurologically twice as powerful as the anticipation of gaining something equivalent. The brain registers this kind of identity dissolution the same way it registers physical danger, and it responds accordingly, with every survival mechanism it has ever developed. This is the moment when people call the former partner, take the job they know will make them miserable, rebuild the persona they had finally started shedding, make peace with the life that was slowly suffocating them, because at least that life has a shape they recognize. Jung watched this happen constantly. He would see someone standing at the very edge of genuine change, the old life crumbling, the new self stirring underneath, and then they would panic. They would grab onto the wreckage of what was falling apart and try to reassemble it. And they would succeed, sort of. The relationship would return to shaky ground. The career would continue with renewed but hollow determination. And from the outside, it would look like recovery, like they had weathered the storm. But Jung knew what they were carrying now. He called it the pain of the unlived life. The particular weight of a person who came to the edge of becoming something genuine and turned back, not because they lacked the strength, because they could not tolerate not knowing for long enough. There is an image that has always helped me understand this threshold. Think about the space between 2 breaths. After you exhale completely and before you inhale again, there is a moment of absolute suspension. Nothing moving, nothing happening. From the inside, it can feel like panic if you are paying attention to it, like the air might never return. But that pause is not emptiness. It is the moment the body reorganizes itself to receive the next breath. The stillness is not the absence of life. It is the condition for life's continuation. The gap between your old chapter and your new one works the same way. The void that feels like nothing is actually where the new self is taking shape. The emptiness is not the absence of meaning. It is the space where meaning that is actually yours, meaning not inherited or performed or borrowed from anyone else's idea of what your life should look like, is quietly gathering the strength to emerge. Elena reached this gap 3 separate times over the course of a year and a half. 3 times she picked up the phone to call her old managing partner and ask for her position back. 3 times something stopped her. Not wisdom, exactly. She described it as a physical sensation, a tightness in her chest that came when her hand touched the phone, as though her body knew something her mind was still arguing about. She did not call. She stayed in the gap. And what came through was not what she expected. But before we get there is something happening in the darkness itself that almost no one understands. Something that the gap is doing to you, even when it feels like nothing is happening at all. 5. What the darkness is actually doing to you. People are taught to endure the darkness, to survive it, to white-knuckle through it until the light returns. Jung had a completely different relationship with it. He did not want his patients to endure the darkness. He wanted them to see what was alive inside it. Because the darkness, the real psychological darkness of the threshold period, is not inert. It is not an absence. It is the most active, most purposeful space a human being can inhabit. And what it is doing, if you let it, is something the light never could. The alchemists described 3 stages in the transformation of base material into gold. The first was the nigredo, the blackening and dissolution. The second was something they called the albedo, the whitening, the stage where light begins to penetrate the darkness, where what was dissolved starts to become visible in ways it never was before. The third was the rubedo, the reddening, the final integration into gold. Most people in the threshold period are living in the nigredo and waiting for the rubedo. They are enduring the dissolution and waiting for the gold. But they are skipping the stage that makes the gold possible. Jung wrote something that sits in the chest like a stone when you are ready to hear it. He wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." Think about what that means in practice. The thing you have been calling love might be the fear of being abandoned. The thing you have been calling responsibility might be a lifelong compulsion to make yourself necessary so that you cannot be rejected. The thing you have been calling strength might be an inability to ask for help that began as a survival strategy before you were old enough to drive a car. None of these realizations are failures. They are the albedo, the light penetrating the dissolution. And this seeing, this uncomfortable, honest, unflinching seeing, is the step that most people skip, and the reason most people never fully reach the other side. The shadow, as Jung understood it, does not become dangerous when it is seen. It becomes dangerous when it is denied. When the parts of you that were rejected, suppressed, or locked away operate invisibly, they function as the hidden architecture of your entire life. Your reactions, your patterns, your choices in relationships, your inexplicable self-sabotage, all of it sourced from somewhere you cannot access because you have never turned the light on in that room. There is a practical question that opens this stage, and it does not require a therapist or a meditation retreat or years of journaling. It is simply this: the most intense emotional reaction you have had in the last month. What is it actually about? Not the surface reason, not the story you told yourself or someone else. What is underneath it? What wound does it touch? What fear does it confirm? That question, held honestly, without rushing to answer it, is the doorway into the albedo. And walking through that doorway is the single most important thing you can do in the darkness. Because what you find there is not a monster. It is the part of you that has been waiting the longest to be seen. The unlived impulse, the buried creativity, the authentic need that you learned very young to pretend did not exist. Once it is seen, it cannot be unseen. Once it is integrated, it stops being fate. It becomes energy, the most powerful energy you have ever had access to, because it has been held under pressure for years, and it is finally free. 6. The moment everything turns into its opposite. The period of deepest isolation, the one that feels like you have been permanently separated from every genuine connection you ever had, almost always precedes the arrival of the most authentic relationships of a person's life. The moment of most complete meaninglessness, when nothing you have ever believed in seems to hold any truth, often gives birth to a sense of purpose so precise and personal that it carries a quality the borrowed sense of purpose never did. The time when a person feels most completely lost, most disoriented, most certain that they have taken a wrong turn somewhere irreversible, is frequently the exact period when they are, for the first time, heading in the right direction. This is not wishful thinking. This is what happens when the ego's agenda finally exhausts itself. When all the planning and strategy and forced optimism run out of fuel, the deeper intelligence of the psyche finally gets a chance to speak. And this deeper intelligence has been paying attention to everything your conscious mind was too busy performing to notice. There is something else that happens in this enantiodromia, something Jung called synchronicity. He described it as an ever-present reality for those who have eyes to see. When you are in the threshold, when your interior is reorganizing itself at the most fundamental level, you begin noticing things you would not have noticed before. Not because those things were not always there, but because the ego, in its ordinary state of control and performance, filters out enormous amounts of information that does not serve its existing narrative. When the ego loosens its grip, that filter lifts. The book that falls open to exactly the page you needed. The stranger who says the thing you have been trying to understand for months. The conversation that arrives at the precise moment a door was closing. Jung did not think these were supernatural events. He thought they were the natural result of a psyche that was finally permeable, finally open to signals it had been blocking. I'm going to suggest something here, and I want you to sit with it honestly. The fact that you are watching this video right now, at this particular moment in your life, is not a coincidence. Not because this video is magical, but because you are. Because whatever is moving in you is moving towards something, and it is finding its way to what it needs. That is not mysticism. That is the mechanism Jung spent his life describing. Elena did not find her next chapter through planning. She was not strategic about it. She was not following a program or executing a vision board. What happened was quieter and more surprising than any of that. A conversation at a friend's dinner party with a woman who ran a small non-profit supporting women through divorce. The conversation lasted 40 minutes. Elena could not stop thinking about it for 3 weeks afterward. She felt something she had not felt since she was a student. since before she knew what she was supposed to become. She felt drawn towards something without any logical reason to justify it, without a financial case, without a career ladder, without anything the old Elena would have recognized as a valid reason to make a change. Jung would have recognized it immediately. When the ego's agenda is finally exhausted, he wrote, the deeper intelligence of the psyche gets a chance to express itself. And it moves not through logic, but through something more like gravity, toward what is actually true, toward what has always been true and could not get through while the performance was running. The new chapter, when it comes, rarely looks like what the old self would have chosen. And that is exactly how you know it is real. 7. The best chapter doesn't look like what you imagined. The best chapter of your life will not arrive the way the old chapters did. Not through goal setting, not through a better plan or a stronger morning routine, or a more disciplined version of the person you have already been. It arrives through something Jung called emergence, a reorganization so deep and so fundamental that your entire relationship with being alive begins to shift. Not your circumstances at first, your interior, the quality of your attention, the way you move through an ordinary day, the things that can finally reach you now that could not get through before. There is a concept Jung returned to quietly throughout his life, one that almost no one in the world of self-improvement ever talks about. He called it the unlived life, the version of you that existed as a real possibility before the persona was constructed, the self that was forming before you learned what was acceptable and what needed to be hidden. Before you understood which parts of yourself were welcome in the room and which ones had to wait outside. That version of you did not disappear, it went underground. And it has been living there ever since, expressing itself in the only ways it could. As a vague longing you cannot locate, as grief that arrives without a clear cause, as the strange, specific envy you feel when you watch certain people live with a freedom you told yourself was impractical. As the dream that keeps returning, the one you wake from and carry with you longer than you should. Jung wrote something about this that I want you to really hear. He wrote that the unlived life is the source of neurosis, not the painful life, not the difficult life, the unlived one. The one you quietly set aside to become the person the world needed you to be. So here's what the darkness has actually been doing. The dissolution, the negredo, the long disorienting collapse of everything that used to hold its shape. It is not the end of you. It is the unlived life pressing back through the surface. It is the person you almost became, finally gathering enough force to break through the false structure and insist on existing. This is what the best chapter is made from. Not new achievements stacked onto the old foundation. A life rebuilt from what is actually true about you. Jung called this the second half of life, and he was very clear that it has nothing to do with age. Some people arrive at this threshold at 28, some at 62, and some never arrive at all. They spend their entire lives in the first chapter, the one built from inherited expectations and borrowed scripts, and never discover what was waiting beneath it. What determines whether someone crosses has less to do with how much they have suffered than you might expect. What brings a person through is a specific kind of honesty, the willingness to look clearly at the life they have been living and acknowledge that it was built, at least in part, from fear, from obligation, from the accumulated weight of everything everyone who ever shaped them needed them to become. And then to decide, quietly and without drama, that the years ahead will not be built the same way. The people who come through the threshold, Jung observed, develop something that almost no other experience produces: a quality of presence, a way of inhabiting their own lives that other people can sense without being able to name it. They make decisions from alignment rather than pressure. They can tolerate uncertainty because they have already survived the most disorienting uncertainty possible, not knowing who they are. They can be alone without loneliness because they discovered, somewhere in the gap, that the companionship they had been reaching for in the external world was available from inside them all along. That is the rubedo. Not a life without difficulty, a life that is finally, genuinely, irreversibly your own. Jung wrote, near the end of his life, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are, not the most successful version of the persona you constructed, not the most polished iteration of the script you inherited, who you actually are, beneath the performance, beneath the fear, beneath everything you became so that others would not leave." That is what this threshold is trying to give you. That is what all of it has been in service of. Your only work right now is to stay, to resist the pullback toward what is familiar but finished, to trust that the darkness is not empty, that the gap is not permanent, that the ground will steady again beneath a version of you that is more real than the one that stood on it before. You are not falling apart. You are being prepared. The darkness is not empty. The gap between the old breath and the new one is not the absence of life. It is the moment life reorganizes itself to receive what is coming. The negredo, the albedo, the rubedo, the dissolution, the illumination, the integration, the full alchemical journey of a soul that is done performing and ready to be real. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Carl Jung said that. And everything he observed in a lifetime of sitting with human souls points toward the same truth. The becoming does not announce itself with trumpets and light. It announces itself with silence, with loss, with the unbearable feeling of standing on ground that keeps shifting beneath your feet. That shifting is the beginning. You are already in it. Before you go, I want to leave you with something small. Not an instruction, just an invitation. If something in this video touched a place you have not visited in a while, write 1 number in the comments. Just a number. The number of years you have been living inside a chapter that was written for someone else. No explanation needed. No story required, just the number. Because sometimes the most honest thing a person can do is simply count the years. And sometimes counting them out loud for the first time is the moment something quietly shifts. And if you want to keep walking this path, subscribe. Not because you need more content, but because when your soul is ready, the right words have a way of finding you again, at the right time, in the right way, as the quietest reminder of all. You were never lost. You were always just on your way home.